We're live. So this, usually the first Thursday of the month, we do question and answer. It's probably my favorite. I'll give the standard question and answer disclaimer, which is the same one that Mike Sifu gives. These are not the answers. These are the best answers that I have tonight. We say this because there's something called a satsang where you will go in and like talk to a meditation teacher, and what they're handing down to you is like the word. And I'm positive that what I'm giving you is not the word. It's just what I've got after 25 years of meditation and trying to tinker around in here and in life. But I also guarantee that if you ask me the same question 10 years from now, I'll give you a much better answer. So if you want to write these answers down or remember them or just keep the recordings, great. And then we'll look back on it and laugh in 10 years. So your question's got to be something about meditation, and try to word it in a concise way that kind of gets to the point, and we don't spend all night just going with questions. I know I've got one question. Do you have anything specific you want to add to your question about how to sit?
No.
Great. So I will say that being taller means sitting in pretty much any position unless you're very flexible. It makes it harder, and especially in Seiza, because there's so much pressure on your knees. When you sit like this, you will feel your knees and probably your ankles hurt. Now, when I first started meditating, I felt the same way. Seiza was the most comfortable for me. When I sit cross-legged, it looks kind of like you. My knees just point straight up, and this is terrible. I don't stand a chance of getting into lotus. Even half lotus is like real. It's a very ugly flower, as my Sifu says. So you got to find out what works for you, and there are a lot of different options, but they are all variations of kneeling or sitting cross-legged or sitting in a chair. So what I'm giving you as an option for tonight is going to be the easiest. I hesitate to say it's the best. In fact, I will tell you that it is not the best unless it's the only one that you can do, because you must sit in a comfortable place. You must sit comfortably. You can sit wherever you want to in the world, but if you're sitting in a way that your knees, your hips, your back hurt, then you are not going to have a meditation. You're going to have a sitting period of time in pain. And there is some utility and great challenge in that you can really learn and grow from it. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to meditate, you got to sit in a way that there's not a whole lot of pain and constantly, being brought back to the sensation of your body, because that's distraction. So when I first started sitting in Seiza, I couldn't do it very well. Now, the first time I do it every day, I just click into place, and then it doesn't hurt for the rest of the day. The first one hurts, none of the rest of them hurt. That may or may not happen for you. You are significantly taller than me, and your knees probably hurt more than mine used to. I was also doing this when I was 17 years old, so there's a difference there. But of the options that you have, as long as your back is straight and your knees are even or below your hips, you're good. So I sit on this bench, which is a great thing that you might want to consider getting something like this, because this bench, you'll see, if you look at it from the side, this allows me to sit very comfortably with my butt on something. So sitting on the cushions can work really well. But if they do make taller benches. If you can't find one that's tall enough for you, then you're going into sitting on something else, sitting on a chair. But back straight, knees even with or below your hips, because otherwise your legs are going to fall asleep during a longer meditation. You'd probably be fine for 5 minutes, but once you get to like 10, 20, then your legs are going to be shot. And the rest of the posture is kind of what I describe every time we meditate. Your chin is parallel to the ground. The crown of your head is kind of raising up. Your eyes are closed and upturned. So this all kind of allows you to be in a position that's comfortable, where you've got good ability to breathe. You're not super crunched because you can't breathe very well here. You want your chest open. You are able to sit in a place in a single position for a long period of time, which is important because every time you go to move, it's like you're restarting the meditation. It's like resetting the clock every time. So those are the general ways. Now, you'll experiment with like, which leg do I put in front? Exactly where do I position my feet? And what I've noticed is the older we get, the less we can count on anything feeling good on any given day. So you might have to change from day to day, but if you can sit in the same position or basically the same position, that will be how you get the most out of your meditation, because then you don't have the distraction of constantly trying to move and find different spots. You get really used to it. You get very comfortable in that position. So even if it is sitting in a straight back chair with your back up against the wall, this is okay. It has all the things that I described. The one downfall or the con to sitting with your back against something is now you're no longer kind of engaged, which sounds kind of like a paradox because you don't want to be actively, thinking and feeling about your posture. But as soon as you start to slouch, this will likely take away your good posture and also make it more likely that you're going to fall asleep. So be very careful of leaning up against something, especially for a longer meditation. And you want to have this as one of your goals, is the way that you sit should enable you to sit for a very long time. Not that we're going to do that often, but you want to be able to. So try not to do that. You can sit with your back away from the back or away from the wall, and you can still get everything else great. So that's likely what you'll end up doing tonight. Other question?
Sir, I'm trying to get better at meditating for longer periods of time.
Me too.
But I'm setting timers, and I feel as if there's a better way of having the timer break me out of it, because I could go longer or shorter. It's hard for me to know, but I don't want to meditate too long and miss.
Yes, okay. So a meditation timer is a great investment. You should certainly have one, and you should certainly not use it every time you meditate. So one of my favorite experiences in the first year of meditating, where I really got into this great groove of meditating every day for 20 minutes, I knew exactly when 20 minutes had passed. After the first probably, month or two, I just really started to know, I could tell. And I would love to say that it's because I started to get some kind of extrasensory ability, and I just was starting to be able to feel the rotation of the earth, and I could tell from the shadow of the sun in my eyes what time it was. It was just that my body could tell, because it started to hurt. The amount of hurt that was 20 minutes, I knew when it was. That might not happen to you because you're probably more flexible than I was when I started, but it might. That is, I'm kind of joking, but being able to meditate without a timer is great, because it does not shake you out of it when you have the opportunity to keep going. I would say a way around that without missing your appointments or whatever is happening in life, because we're not monks or nuns. At least maybe somebody watching this on social media is, but you two aren't. And that means that you cannot just devote your entire life to meditation. Other things have to get done. You have to show up to the dojo and make phone calls and eat food and all that stuff. So set a timer for a time that is significantly longer than the time that you're trying to meditate for, but it's short enough that it will get you to the rest of your day, whatever you need to do. So let's say that you want to sit for 10 minutes, but you want the ability to meditate for 20 minutes, set it for 20 minutes. And at some point between 10 and 20, you'll probably feel like, okay, this is it. I can't sit anymore because my body is not allowing me to do it, or my brain is fully in the mode of non-meditation, and then you can be done with it. When you have a super long chunk of time that you can devote to it, don't set a timer up at all, so that you have the possibility of a very long meditation. But also, there's no what I used to do when I first started using the timer was I would wonder, oh, did I set the timer or not? It seems like it's been 20 minutes. Yeah, I must not have set the timer right. And I'd open my eyes and it's only been 10 minutes and it's like, oh, curses. So don't use it as a crutch. Don't have to have it. And one of my best pieces of advice about meditation is, if you have to have something that is outside of you, this is something that you should really try to steer away from as much as possible, because I always fantasize about, what if I get stuck on a deserted island? I'm like doing my castaway thing and I've got no timer. I don't want to have the excuse to not meditate because I don't have my meditation timer. And the timer is kind of a silly thing, but a lot of people use like an app, Headspace, something that's talking them through a meditation. And if you don't have that with you and therefore you cannot meditate, that's not going to work. Anytime you don't have your phone and it's fully charged and I have the internet so that I can do it, you want to be able to do it without that if possible. Those are great tools. There are lots of things that you can use to support your meditation practice, and I'm not saying you should never use them. Surely, the choice is between using that and not meditating at all, then you should use it. But the better way to do it is just to be able to not rely on anything. So that includes, like, I like to sit and listen to this kind of music, or I like to sit and look at this candle flame. These are totally viable ways of meditating, and I'm not going to say that you should never do them, but recognize the limitation there. Just like I can only sit in this specific chair in this spot in my house. I used to meditate in my closet back in Michigan. I had this like really massive, in Michigan we have big houses, and so I had a walk-in closet. I actually had a walk-in closet on both sides of my room because I was on the top floor of like this, and I could sit in either closet. It had carpet on the ground. I could close the door and I basically heard nothing. And that was really wonderful until I moved out of that house, and then I could hear stuff again. So you get my point. Other question. Frida.
Good evening, Sifu. I understand you have very strict rules when it comes to meditation with testing and that you can't move and all that. But what about the home practice? For example, I'll sneeze, or I'll feel compelled to adjust my body. Should I just, if that's going to happen, should I just take myself out of meditation and just call it quits, or should I start over, or should I respect these bodily functions?
I can't believe you sneezed during meditation, Frida. How could you? The short answer to your question is yes to the second option that you gave me. Do not stop meditating when you have to sneeze or you have to move or something, because what's going to happen is your body is going to say, I figured it out. I know how to get us to stop meditating. I'm going to have an ache, or I'm going to sneeze, or I'm going to something, because it's really like your ego, your body doesn't like sitting still. It hurts and your body likes to move. It's what it's designed to do. Your body's not really designed to sit. Your ego definitely does not want you to meditate. Your ego wants you to be thinking and exploring and getting in dramatic conversations and inventing stuff, including inventing reasons not to meditate. So there are lots of forces, if you look at it from one side, that are kind of arrayed against you, that want you to stop meditating. And if you give in to them, it will become, you're basically, a lot of people who talk about meditation talk about like you're taming the monkey mind. And when you give in to what the monkey mind wants, which is for you to move or be distracted or think about whatever, and you give into it once, that is a rabid, very, what's it called when you really want something? You're greedy. It's a greedy monkey. And if you give it an inch, it's going to take a mile, and it's going to keep doing that thing. So this is as you said, when we do a test, because it would be quite easy for somebody to meditate for an hour if you were allowed to move, if you were allowed to get up and walk around and then come back and sit or whatever. So to make it a challenge, we say no movement. And I do absolutely recommend that as you're getting ready for a test, that you don't let yourself move during your meditations, because you want to know, you want that solid ability to sit still during meditation. But during meditation practice at home, I'm not watching you, so you don't have to sit still. It's better, but the next best thing is to move and then go right back to your meditation. And it's the same thing here in meditation class. I'm not saying that you are absolutely forbidden from moving. If you're sitting in a way that's so uncomfortable that you're gonna be unable to meditate because it's so painful, then make a quick and quiet adjustment and then try to sit still again. You gotta sneeze, and come right back to it. One of the best things that you can practice actually is when you have something that must happen, like a sneeze. I actually try I try to resist the sneeze if I can and then let it go. But again, resisting creates its own problems. But in any case, you got to sneeze. And then instead of being in your head like, oh, my meditation is a failure, I moved, I sneezed, I scratched, like you just let it go. You let it go like nothing happened. And that is really what is there for us with any meditation, because you have a thought. You can then start to get attached to the fact that you had a thought, then you can beat yourself up about it, or you can just let it go. One of the best stories about this concept is two monks walking down the side of a river, and they come to a clearing where this woman has been trying to cross the river and she can't. And it's, kind of too high for her, it's too fast. And so the one monk throws her on his shoulder and walks across, sets her down on the other side, and then they continue on their way. And like hours later, the second monk has been stewing on this the whole time, and he can't handle it anymore. And he says, wait a minute. We monks aren't allowed to look at a woman, let alone touch one, and you just did that. How can you be okay with that and live with yourself? And the first monk said, brother, I set her down at the river 2 hours ago, and you've been carrying her the entire time. This is a great illustration of this idea where, of course, it would, according to the rules of monkhood, you don't want to have to do that. But if that's what's in front of you, you do it, and then you move on and you let go. It's like when the Dalai Lama was asked, this is a really bold question for somebody to ask the Dalai Lama. Some journalist probably was in a situation with him, and he asked, do you ever have thoughts of desire? Do you ever have sexual thoughts? Asked the Dalai Lama this, and the Dalai Lama gave a great answer. He says, yes, but I don't dwell on them. And that's it. So, of course, the Dalai Lama could think like, I'm supposed to be this like almighty, perfect person. I'm this example of purity for everybody, and just spend his whole life worrying about the types of thoughts that he's having, or he can just let it go and just move right along to it. So the real problem here that we want to avoid is the resistance and attachment. So you move, let it go, move on. I know Tanya's got one. What is it? You're going to give me the concise version.
Sifu, it is too early in the morning to think coherently, so I will just read my question. It's not very concise. When on a new journey, where all is full of potential and honored and treated as such, sometimes it's still the familiar and the loved, the places, people, activities, and work that touched us or changed us deeply that we long for. Other than acknowledging that, allowing that, and even leaning into it to honor those feelings, what do you do with that? I try to use it as a springboard, as encouragement to open my eyes to what's possible. But while the new journey may be on the way to creating new and meaningful connections, that takes a lot of time. And in the interim, and as interesting as the path is, it's still missing those pieces that were held dear for very good reason. So it comes full circle and it just keeps going. So what do you do with that?
Okay, so this is a great question, eloquently put, if not long-winded. And I really get the world of what you're experiencing, especially because I know you and you know what your journey has been recently. For those of you who don't, this is a student who was practicing with us for a long time, and I know really loved your practice here, and then had to move and has been doing Zoom classes from Paris, and it's not the same, I know, but you've also been practicing some Aikido and some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and kind of trying to take the, you know, some pieces of what we do here and continue practicing and learning. And my hope that you someday get to move back and practice with us, but I know for sure you'll at least come and visit, and we'll get to see you then on the mats. But the question about like, what do I do with that? Like, missing practice here and having the opportunity for a new path and a new kind of part of your life, a new section of the journey. What do you do with the, I'm sure on some level, and in many ways, this is attachment to your old practice and to us and to the dojo, maybe even the physical space. I'm sure you walk into a lot of other schools and you see like, wait a minute, why does it smell bad in here? And where's the wall scroll that says Mushin? And how come nobody's smiling at me when I walk in the door? Or whatever else it is. And you can find little things to nitpick about that. And you can find big things to nitpick about that. Like, well, we used to be nice to each other when we practice, and now this person's just trying to strangle me. And I'm not saying this is your experience exactly, but for sure it's some iterative of that. And as I've mentioned to you in the past, there is some at least a couple of things that I'm sure are better about the experience if you allow yourself to be there for it and to welcome that in. This is a problem that a lot of people have in their martial arts practice if they have practiced somewhere else. I will say that we have a ton of people in this school who have practiced other styles of martial arts, myself included, and some of them have practiced for many years, and some of them have black belts in other styles. We just had somebody start practicing with us a couple of weeks ago who is like I think a second or something degree, like a high ranking black belt in his style before, and he loves what we're doing here. And it's not exactly the same. And every time I tell him, no, you can't kick like that, you got to kick like this. And it's like a little thing. And I'm sure some of that he really loves it because he wants the details. And I'm sure some of it annoys him. And he's like, oh, well, I've been doing it that way for 18 years, really? And I need to change that now. So this is a challenge, and you can experience it like a challenge. And most people, when they have a hard thing like that to deal with, they feel resistance. They feel like, we used to do it this way. And that kind of grinding resistance makes it a very unpleasant experience. And then there's the other way where you just kind of invite it in and just let it wash over you. And I've had this where it's something as simple as like, well, we used to call this technique this thing, but now we call it this thing. And that's enough to make me kind of grind against it. And it has been much bigger changes where we used to practice, you know, as I change different jiu-jitsu schools, we used to practice with a lot more kind of flow and really just focusing on that side of it. And now it's like I get to practice with gorillas straight up who are trying to grind me into a paste sometimes. And I'll tell you, it's very difficult to appreciate that sometimes, but it is I do recognize that what's possible there, what's available for me, is to see that as an opportunity. Every challenge is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to stop being stuck on doing it the way that I used to do and find another way of doing it. It's an opportunity to be creative and literally just switching the way that you see it in your mind from problem to opportunity, from, you know, challenge to an experience where I get to be creative and find another way out is great. So this is one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to you. And it might not be that, oh, I'm going to another martial arts school. It might be, I'm just in a different situation and I'm experiencing a challenge here. So how do I take that lesson from my martial arts practice in the dojo into everything else? So that's great. I've had the opportunity several times to practice in a new school, and it's different from the way that it was. But every single day, I go out into the rest of the messed up world where people aren't trying to be partners. People aren't trying to, you know, treat us with respect. People are cutting you off on the freeway, literally the first second that you give them. You're only going 7 miles an hour over the speed limit. Screw you, I'm cutting you off. And this is just like the way that we get to experience wonderful opportunities to be creative and to flow with whatever life gives us. So it is totally okay to honor and miss and love the way that we practice here. I will say that a lot of you are here and thinking like, well, I'm just going to be able to do this for the rest of my life. I'm the only person who I'm sure is going to be here until I'm done teaching. The dojo, I hope, is still here after I'm dead and gone, but I'm the only one who I am guaranteed is still going to be here. You might have to move. You might, you know, have to change your schedule so dramatically. Something might happen. Your leg gets chopped off. You can't practice anymore, whatever. But whether you are listening from somewhere else and you can't practice here anymore, or you've never practiced here, or you're here right now, but you got to be aware of this as a possibility. Everything in life is in flux. Everything is like this. In martial arts practice, even if you're still coming to the dojo, and everything else. So you got to ride the wave and enjoy it. Truly get to this place where we can appreciate every wave, whether it's down or up or side to side or in a different country or whatever else, and ride it. And it doesn't mean that you have to set it above your experience here or below. It is just a different, you know, part of the ride. And I used to hate roller coasters because, first of all, I was literally too afraid to even get on a roller coaster until I was in my senior year of high school. I had only gone on like Space Mountain, that's it. Still, for me, Space Mountain is about as much as I like. But I went one year, I was just tired of being so afraid. We went on this school trip for my physics class. This is kind of a ridiculous trip, but we all went to, I think, Cedar Point, which is kind of like Six Flags. And it was like, either I'm going to look like a baby in front of everybody in my class, or I'm going to get on this ride and do it. So I made myself do it. And lo and behold, I absolutely loved it. I had an amazing time on every single roller coaster I went on until I had like a warm Dr. Pepper, and then that was it for me. I felt like I was going to barf, so I stopped. And it was like a really eye-opening experience for me to go from I hate this and I'm afraid of it to I really love it. And I'm sure that many people have that experience going into a martial arts school. Many people have that experience just trying to sit in meditation and like just truly allow yourself to be still. And for sure, you know, going into another school, there's a lot of things to be nervous about, to be afraid of, to wish it was a different way. And I will tell you, when I was you know, going like this on the first trip up to the top of that first roller coaster. The entire time I was doing this, I was thinking, I wish I was not on this ride right now. I would be so much happier if I were on my feet on the ground. And then as soon as this happens, the first couple of seconds, I was really extra wishing that I was on the ground, but then I was able to just let it go and enjoy it. And it went like this, and a couple of the rides went like this. I went on this crazy ride that like spun this way, and it was amazing. That's only possible. The ride is only possible for us to enjoy if we let go, right? You can sit like this with your eyes closed and just brace against it, and that sucks. Or you can just go, and whatever experience is there for us is what we allow in and enjoy it. You want to be like that. Another way of looking at it is like a leaf being on the top of the waves of the ocean. If you try to resist that, I mean, leaves can't resist, but make yourself like a leaf. You just effortlessly kind of going with whatever happens. There are times where you should stand your ground. There are times where you should put your foot down and make sure that what you know is right is what's getting done. But in my experience, many of us are way too good at being attached to the way that things are now, not nearly as good enough as we should be of just going with it. So ride the ride and love it. Ask me again in 10 years and I'll give you a better answer. So let's sit comfortably. There's not going to be a lot of physical movement, I hope, in this meditation, so not a lot of that kind of ride, but your meditation might be quite a wild ride where you have many ups and downs with your ability to be in the present, with your ability to focus on the breath. So enjoy that in your meditation. Just like you got to be strapped into the roller coaster, you want to be strapped into a good way of sitting. So whether you're sitting on a chair, cross-legged, seiza, make sure that your knees are even or below your hips. Make sure that your hands are on your thighs. They can be together or they can be separate, but you don't want to be slouching. So you don't want your hands to go too far down, and you don't want them to go too far out if this causes your chest to kind of contract. So keep it open this way. Your chin parallel to the ground, your eyes closed and upturned to the point between your eyebrows. Those eyes, relax, watch the breath. Let go of all thoughts, worries, and cares. Be here now. When your mind wanders, rather than being attached to the thought, let it go. One of the best ways to do that without being attached to the fact that you're not meditating as well as you would like to is just say the word in your mind, thought, and you're recognizing the thought and letting it go. There's no resistance to it. You're just welcoming it in and then letting it go. You do that as early as you can, as many times as you need to.